Hello, my name is Don Lonzer. I am a construction inspector for the Michigan Department of Transportation, or MDOT. I would like to talk to you about what bridge inspectors do. A bridge inspector oversees the construction process. The inspector makes sure the bridge is built safely, correctly, and a real value to the taxpayers. The inspector documents all construction activity every day and works closely with the contractor's crew. An inspector represents the state engineer and the taxpayers. We work for you. Let's talk about some components of the bridge. There's the substructure, which is everything below the beams, including the foundation, and the superstructure, that's everything above the beams, including the deck and walls. How do you build a bridge? Let's go over the steps. Step 1, drive pile or place footing. Step 2, build substructure. Step 3, set beams. Step 4, pour the deck. And Step 5, finalize the bridge. Pile driving is a loud and messy operation. The pile needs to be driven as deeply as possible into the ground to support the bridge. Steel H piles are long pieces of steel. If you look at them from the end, it's shaped like the letter H. It supports the weight of the bridge in traffic in poor or unstable soil conditions. The pile can be over 100 feet long. A saxometer is used to tell when the pile is deep enough. It does this by measuring the intensity of the sound given off when the pile is struck by the pile hammer. This is a video of the pile driving process. You might want to turn your volume down because it's pretty loud. The substructure is built next. If you don't have pile, you'll pour a huge spread footing first. If pile are used, a minor foundation or pile cap is poured. An abutment is placed on top of the footing. It is the tall wall you see when you pass under a bridge. Some bridge foundations are set up high, rather than being buried in the ground. They will require an MSE wall. It is a built-up thin wall with sand and steel mesh. This can be seen in the picture. Inspectors must check all the forms. Forms are the box the concrete is cast in. They make sure the forms are the correct dimensions and grade. Grade is the elevation that the engineer wants the concrete to be poured to. The inspector makes sure that the reinforcement is placed using the correct size, length, and spacing. All reinforcement must be tied tightly together. Reinforcement makes sure that the concrete doesn't fall apart by transferring the weight of the bridge and traffic through the foundation and into the pile. The concrete is tested for temperature, slump, and air. If the concrete is too hot, it can't be used. Concrete gives off heat, but you do not want it to freeze. Slump is how wet the concrete is. Too much water gives you a high slump. The concrete will not be strong enough. Too little water will make the concrete too stiff to work with. It also means the concrete may not have enough air to be strong. Air is important to concrete. We actually add soapy products to the concrete to create small air voids. This makes the concrete stronger. The beams are part of the superstructure of the bridge. They are placed on top of the substructure. The inspector verifies that the correct beams are brought to the site. They make sure the beams are the correct size and shape. They make sure the beams have no serious structural or surface defects by visual inspection. They make sure the beams have a special stamp to assure that they were inspected at the factory. The inspector makes sure the beams are placed in the correct order. Inspectors make sure the internal supports or diaphragms are placed to stabilize the beams. They make sure that wood decking is placed below the beams. This is called false decking. It is used to make sure workers do not fall through or drop anything on traffic. The steel pan decking is then placed between the beams to support the concrete deck. These are the forms for the upcoming deck pour. It is almost time to pour the deck. The contractor places reinforcement steel on top of the beams and decking. The inspector makes sure that the steel is the correct size, length, and spacing. They also make sure that the steel is tied tightly and also tied to the decking so it can't float. The inspector works with the contractor to check the paving machine or bid well. They measure the distance from the screed, the part that finishes the top of the concrete, to the deck and top layer of steel. This makes sure the concrete is thick enough and far enough above the steel to prevent cracking. The weather needs to be right for the deck pour. The wind speed, air temperature, and concrete temperature is checked. The inspector uses a chart to make sure too much water won't leave the concrete before the deck is covered. This is called the evaporation rate. While the concrete is being poured, the inspectors check the slopes and grade of the new concrete to assure there are no bumps or dips in the surface. They also perform wet depth checks just like they did to set up the bid well. The initial check is called the dry run. The wet checks are called the wet run. Now it is time to finalize the bridge. The walls are poured on the sides of the bridge to keep vehicles from going over the edge. That is the last part of the superstructure. The bridge is cleaned and checked for bumps and dips before it can be accepted and opened. Our bridge is now open to the public. Thank you so much for watching. Maybe you'll be the next bridge inspector. I'll see you out there.